Hello, this is your host, Renata Ortega. Welcome to today's episode of the Cycle Breaker and Changemaker podcast. This podcast is all about how to break free from negative generational cycles in order to create meaningful, lasting changes. For helpful tools and answers to your most pressing questions, be sure to follow me on Instagram and Facebook at Cycle Breaker Changemaker. I look forward to helping you on your cycle breaking and change-making journey. I promise you will find nothing more rewarding than this. In today's episode, I will be discussing catastrophizing. If you have ever found yourself jumping to the worst case scenario and predicting and preparing for the most awful outcomes all the time, you could be experiencing catastrophizing as a result of trauma. The interesting thing that most people don't know about catastrophizing is that it is a method of trying to gain control over outcomes. Control, of course, helps us feel safe. So while catastrophizing can be an unhelpful response, it is no wonder it makes us feel so good in the moment we are experiencing it. I will never forget the day a dear friend said, "Did you know it's not normal to be afraid of getting into a car crash every time you drive?" I remember saying no. I thought everyone did that. I was truly shocked to find out that preparing for the worst outcomes was not a standard or even healthy way of living, because I had become so used to living in a way that I thought was preparing me for anything that was to come. The thing is, though, while there are many things that are in your control, such as what you select to wear or the groceries that you purchase, many life events are not in your control. The sooner you focus your energy on what you can control versus what you can't, the more productive and truly in control you will be. So what exactly is catastrophizing? I will be focusing on catastrophizing as a trauma response. However, I would like to point out that other events such as life-threatening illnesses, sudden job loss, chronic fatigue, chronic pain, and anxiety disorders can also lead to this type of thinking. Regardless of why this type of thinking may occur for you, the information in this episode will still be helpful to hear. Predicting the worst-case scenario can be a coping mechanism of protection. Preparing for the worst may make someone feel that they can avoid disappointment and hurt. Here is an example of catastrophic thinking. I can't fall asleep. I have a big presentation at work tomorrow. Now I'm not going to get any sleep and the presentation is going to be terrible. I'm going to disappoint my manager and my team, and I'm going to lose my job, and I'm never going to be able to find a good job again. So, why does catastrophizing happen? Catastrophizing can happen after a traumatic event, and it can happen so often that it becomes a normal way of thinking. It can lead to a mental state that is always anxious and overwhelmed, which in turn leads to a continued doom and gloom style of thinking. If you have experienced trauma, it makes sense that your response could evolve into changing your view of the world. You may view the world as a bad place. You may be untrusting of others. And you may not take chances that could lead to you getting hurt. After a person goes through a traumatic event, their primitive brain that is working hard to keep them safe is going to be on high alert for anything that looks like it could cause the trauma to repeat. And this will initiate a chain of thinking to avoid the hurt. Here's my story and how catastrophizing has impacted me as an adult. For as long as I can remember, I have felt the urgency to run away from danger. I have these memories going back to infancy. Do I have an incredible memory? Maybe. People often say they don't have memories that go back as far as mine do. I don't look at it as having an incredible memory, though. To me, traumatic events happened so early in my life that the impressions were made and the feelings of fear were imprinted before I had even developed any critical thinking skills. Because of these early experiences and imprints, I have developed an extremely strong survival response, part of which has materialized as these early memories reminding me of what I need to avoid. For years, I was unknowingly catastrophizing. I automatically thought the worst was going to happen, so I might as well prepare for it. I was experiencing this as a child. So when I got my brain tumor at the age of 18, you can imagine where my mind went. I wrote a will before my surgery. I didn't think I was going to make it out alive, and if I did, I thought I would not remember anyone. Even though the opposite was true, I came out very much alive and I remembered everyone. It did not change my pattern of thinking. The main issue was I did not know it was an unhelpful way of thinking. It had to be pointed out to me by someone who shared the same way of thinking and had learned that it was not standard. Catastrophizing all the time is exhausting. It takes up a great deal of mental space that could be used elsewhere and in more fruitful ways. So what have I done to break the cycle of trauma that has led to catastrophizing for me? As soon as I began to understand my way of thinking, I was relieved. I had missed looking into this because I thought this way of thinking was the way everyone existed. When I learned that was not the case, I saw that there was hope. This was actually a way of thinking that could be changed, and what was most helpful to me is that there was a rational reason behind the way my mind was operating. Step 1. Acknowledging that part of the experience of being human is that life events and challenges happen to us. We simply cannot control everything. I know it sounds logical and maybe even simplistic, but this concept really does need to be understood in order to make progress. Step 2. Start to pay attention to your thought patterns and notice if you may be catastrophizing. Write your thoughts down and ask yourself, are these all really realistic outcomes? Is the worst case scenario really as bad as I think it is? When I have been in this type of situation before, did the worst case scenario actually happen? And step 3. Practice halting this thought pattern. This is going to be hard at first, and you may need to try more than one method. I literally had to yell, "Stop! No! Be quiet!" to my thoughts. And if I could, I would yell this out loud. Picture a train running extremely fast, looking like it's going to barrel through a stop sign. How would you stop it? You would slam on the brakes. So you are going to do the same thing here. Slam on the brakes of your mind. If talking to yourself doesn't work, try moving. Try going to another room. Try splashing cold water on your face. Do whatever works for you to stop that train. Here's my experience and how implementing these steps has led to a positive outcome. I remember one of the times in my life that was really tough. I was in the thick of postpartum depression, which was related to my childhood trauma. I was running a company, and I had to get one of my abusers help in order to protect them, others, and myself. There was so much going on. But I experienced this moment of peace and calm. It was fleeting, because shortly after a worried thought came into my mind, but I said to my doctor, "What was that?" It was so foreign to me that I had to ask what it was. That doctor replied that I could actually live that way, with peace and calm. And that moment is what started me on the journey of truly healing myself. This is why I want to help anyone listening. You don't have to live in a state of fear all the time. And I have sorted through and tried hundreds of solutions and methods so that you don't have to. Believe me, if I can experience a state of peace and calm after what I have been through, you can too. Thank you for listening to today's episode of Cycle Breaker and Changemaker. I would love to hear from you and to receive your feedback. Remember, you can reach me on Instagram or Facebook at Cycle Breaker Changemaker. Please rate, review, and subscribe wherever you get your podcasts in order to help me continue to help you. I am looking forward to having you join me for the next episode. Until then, please take care.